subject study. And really the idea is really to turn everyone's curiosity and concerns into impact. So interested volunteers, they will take part in these scientific endeavor, in scientific discoveries, observations, experiment, or data analysis using new technologies, primarily smartphones. It is one way people are able to contribute to address real-world challenges. And you might wonder, so what are some of the things that have been discovered through citizen science? So I'm going to tell you a few. Thanks to the global participation, we now know that bird population have declined by 50%. Birds are breeding earlier. 50 plus types of bacteria live in your belly button. And first flowering of 19 species of plants have moved 9 days earlier over the past decade. So why citizen science? When we turn to the communities involved in citizen science, community members, again, they're not the subject study. They are partners in research. They bring their own unique perspective, knowledge, and voices to the table, ensuring that the science we do are as rich and diverse as the communities themselves. Their involvement weave cultural heritage and local wisdom into the scientific narrative, making the research process incredibly rich and multifaceted. And as they contribute to creating actionable solutions, they're not just participants, they're actually catalysts to change, for change in their environment and for their well-being. This is empowerment in action, and it's community members taking ownership, driving stewardship, and committing to this long-term health of their environment. And most importantly, there's this cornerstone that holds all things together, open data. It's the fuel of the citizen science engine. This is data without barriers, free for everyone to use, to share, and build upon. It is vital for maintaining transparency, sparking innovation, and enriching and accelerating scientific research. Citizen science projects pour into this pool of open data, making it an ever-growing resources for discovery and community action. So when we talk about citizen science, we're talking about a collective stride towards a future where science is participatory, education is immersive, communities are empowered, and data is for everyone. So how do libraries engaging the public in doing citizen science? So for us in the public library realm, because academic library does it slightly different than us, but what we do is we usually start with a fun hands-on STEM activities that's for all ages, not just for kids in libraries, and then we do in school also community outreach events to help participants to understand the science behind these locally relevant environmental issues that we're trying to highlight. And then we will follow by a hands-on participation in citizen science project, mainly data collection, classification, or analysis. Some of the examples of the programs that we do includes the nature, neighborhood, climate walk. We do BioBlitz or Nature Challenge. I don't know how many of you have heard or participated in City Nature Challenge that's started by Natural History Museum. They're actually doing it again this April. We also host speaker series. We have speakers coming from NASA, JPL. We have people coming from basically also the local environmental communities, groups. We do hands-on STEM activities, as mentioned earlier. We have story times. We do gamathons, because a lot of citizen science projects, when they were created as a game. One of the ones that we have done a few times is called Stalk Catcher. The purpose is to really helping accelerating the Alzheimer's research by asking all of us to help identify the stalls in all these photos or images that they capture from the mice that's in the lab. They're trying to capture the stall blood vessel in the brain. So, and it's a game. If you guys are interested, you can look it up. It's called Stalk Catchers. And then we also do Citizen Science Club, or we do scavenger hunt. Now we're really focusing on healthy soil initiative, so we're trying to start the library gardens and tie those type of programs in there. And we also offer what we call the circulating or do-it-yourself citizen science kits that has all the equipments and supplies to encourage participants to collect data in their neighborhoods or homes and share that finding. These do-it-yourself circulating kits are aimed to lower the barriers to entry and empower the public to learn about these topics at their own pace and their own convenience. We currently have these kits that highlight 7 environmental issues that really impacting the communities in the city of Los Angeles. And they are available for checkout in 38 of 73 locations of our library system. All of these kits are aligned to the next generation science standards, which is adopted by the LA Unified School District. And we also align them to the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And so what are the topics that we have? I brought 3 of them today, but we also we have the cloud observation using the Globe Observer app. That is a NASA project which allow individuals to share cloud data that are used by NASA scientists for research on changing climate. We do water quality monitoring, air quality monitoring, light pollution monitoring with Globe at Night. We have exploring biodiversity using a naturalist app, and mosquito habitat mapping or mapper, also using Globe Observer. And last but not least, the urban heat island effect and tree height measuring, and it's also part of the Globe Observer project. Now, I want to mention this because a lot of people thought, well, you're going to need all these special equipment in order to do citizen science. That is not true. Oftentimes, citizens or anyone, citizen or what we call the neighborhood scientist, they don't really require to use anything except their mobile phones or tablets with internet connection to participate. But for libraries that has extra funding, we do think it's a good idea to create these kits because it really helps enhance participants' experience and reinforce that development of what we call the citizen scientist identity. Because most of the time, public still see scientists as people who use very sophisticated tools to conduct studies or research, especially for the younger audiences. So these organizations and institutions are very important partners for Los Angeles Public Library when we do for our citizen science programs. In fact, we would not have citizen science programs going on in a library if we have none of these partners. And it was a challenge for public libraries specifically to reach out to get partnership when it comes to anything science, because you might notice this. I mean, I personally have noticed this whenever I go to different conferences, especially when it's like AGU, I went in December. They're like, what are you doing here as a librarian? They do not connect me with science. They don't see libraries as a place that would do science programs. We do a lot of arts and crafts, we do a lot of book clubs, but we are transforming. And so we are we are actually offering a various type of programs, and science is really just one of them. So I want to share some of the stories that when I first reached out to these partners. I started doing this back in 2018 when citizen science was just kind of barely started getting noticed and recognized by science communities, especially researchers. And I remember when I was reaching out, I was thinking, well, citizen science, that means people want a lot of data, and it's all research. And of course, my first thought was, let me reach out to the academics, the universities. So I reached out to a lot of universities in Southern California, and ranging from the UC system to Cal State system to even like city community college and stuff. And they all tell me, well, we don't really need data from the public. We're doing this, we have a funding specifically for our research. So, we're doing this and we're going to be publishing this, so we don't want to, muddle the water, kind of. So I was like, okay, well, but don't you need data? Well, we have our way to figure it out. So that was a no-go. So I had to cut that off. And then we tried to reach out to the museums. Natural History Museum has a history of doing a lot of citizen science projects. Unfortunately, when we reached out to them in 2018, at that time, they just got a really huge grant. I think it's millions. And they decided, they have roped in like 20 plus partners, and they just don't have the capacity to take on another partner. So they told us maybe next round, but we can't. So I had to go back to square one again. And this time, I just madly going on Google and Google everything as long as I can see partner and citizen science. And I reach out to all these groups that you can see here. The first group that actually respond to me was the GLOW program. I don't know how many of you have heard of GLOW program. Anyone? Okay. We have one, yes. So GLOW program is now actually supported by NASA because now NASA is really into citizen science. But it's an acronym known as Global Learning and Observation to Benefit the Environment program that started back in I want to say in the 90s when the former president Al Gore published the first book, An Inconvenient Truth. So, and the program itself is amazing. It's all about citizen science, engaging public, especially students, to collect data for a lot of NASA research projects. And so we thought, well, this would be a perfect fit because we work with a unified school district, we work with public, and the citizen science. And so we reached out to them, and we lucked out because they were at the point looking in partnering with informal educators instead of just usual high school, middle schools. So we signed a contract, and right away at that point we have 18 librarians on board as the first batch to pilot the program. We did 4 full days of very intensive training on how to do citizen science project. Very, very rigorous, dense content. The protocols was just like this. And so after the 4-day training, we lost 60% of the librarians. They were like, Vivienne, this is like going back to high school again. I don't remember most of the science curriculum anymore. I only remember when we'd have to do the soil testing. It requires using like 7 different types of solutions in order to test the soil. And they were just like trying to figure out how to do all the soils and memorizing them. It's just impossible. And so, but some of our librarians said, well, I'm going to give it a shot. So we did try. And it was a failure because we realized these rigorous protocols requires time to do in a library. And as you all know, if you have ever attended any of the public library programs, our program typically don't last more than an hour. And you're doing these testing that requires multiple 1 hours. Number one. Number two, you would never be able to finish one protocol in 1 hour. It takes a lot of time. So we got a grant to run this program with Globe, and it didn't work well for us, so we had to fall back and figure out what are we going to do next. But we really liked the curriculum. We really liked how the hydrosphere, all the spheres that they have it spread it out. So we kind of thinking the way to try to simplify it. And eventually we ended up tapping into the Globe Observer, which I'm going to show in a minute, which is also a separate arm of the Globe program. And what I do is all of their protocols are already built in these apps that people can just follow the apps very easily. It's simplified the entire process. And you can done it in less than, some of the project you can do it in a few minutes, some of them you can probably do it in 10 minutes. But it's a lot of fun, it's very engaging. And having been on the app also makes it very interactive, and people are visually appealing, so we start getting more people participate. So that was part of the story. And going back to some of the partners we have, the EPA one is a very interesting one. Do we have anybody here from EPA? I need to make sure before I say anything. Okay. The reason being, when I reached out to EPA, I found out they were interested in disseminating air sensors to the general public as part of their air quality education program. And so, and I'm assuming when they do this, they're going to need research data. They're doing this for a reason. So I reached out to them. I did not hear from them for, I think, a good 6 months. And then all of a sudden they call me, the one up north in Northern California. And they say, hey, you're interested in doing something with our air sensor? I said, yes. I said, we would like to have them as an item people can check out, can learn about air quality. And I figure you guys probably doing this as a research that we will be able to contribute data to your research. And this is during the Trump administration. So they said, oh, no, we don't want your data right away. We just want to push this as an education program. We want to teach people to learn about air quality, but we do not want your data, period. And I said, why? I said, I can tell you over the phone. I was like, okay, fine. Well, just let me know how I'm going to be able to get the air sensors, and that's all I need. And so they said, yeah, and we're going to train you how to carry out the program. We're going to have the whole curriculum designed, customize it for LA community, and you will be able to do all this. I was like, great. And I checked again, you still don't want any of the data. It's like, no, we're good. Okay, so, and that's kind of being continuous. And I think they're now, given how, even though we're already moving on to the Biden administration, the program's sort of keeping the same format now because they really just want to focus on educating people on air quality. It's more for an outreach purpose rather than data collection now, so they just kind of separate that out. The way that they're collecting data, obviously, is now they're putting a lot of sensors throughout the cities, and it's hard mount, so they're working with our city, with a lot of cities around to get those data now. But they're not having like a ground truthing team to kind of helping them doing any validation, so. And I still hope that they will someday. So that was another interesting program, interesting experience we have. We reached out to a lot of them, and Mujeres de la Tierra is actually one of the local environmental group that reach out to us when they found out we have air sensor. They're one of the few environmental groups that's fully Spanish speaking, and they really took the environmental issue in their own community, in their own hand. They were facing problem with noise pollution, air quality, air pollution, and also the extreme heat problems in their community, which is primarily in East LA. And so they reach out to us, asking us if we have sensors for them to check out, that they want to use it for their program. So right away we worked with them and we got them the sensors. So they were able to expand their research a little bit more by getting their participants to actually test the air quality in their own neighborhood rather than they do like monthly gathering only at certain parts of the city. So that's some of the interesting anecdotes we have when we were developing this strategic partnership, but they were very, very important to us. And you might wonder, so why do they want to partner with us? So obviously, I just mentioned to you why EPA think it was important to partner with us. They do see library have a lot of great values, and soon we found out most of them have the same idea. So these are the few reasons I'm going to mention. So one is they found out libraries are everywhere. I don't know if you know this, but there are more libraries than Starbucks and McDonald's in the world. According to the International Federation of Library Association, there are around 2.8 million libraries of all types combined. And of that number, over 410,000 are public libraries. So we have the reach. And imagine if you're doing a citizen science project, how much data you will be able to collect through us, through these libraries. And it's not going to be geographically limited to only certain region. If you want to expand your research, it will go. And Library South stands as a beacon in communities. We're accessible, reliable, and we're ever present. That's what makes us the ideal launching pad for citizen science. And we do have tons of resources that make science open and accessible to everyone, especially for those in the underserved areas. Libraries already have been providing a wide range of physical and digital resources and technologies that a lot of them may be needed for citizen science projects, such as computers, internet access, specialized softwares, and we create these specialized tools for people to use. So that's one more reason. And librarians themselves, including myself, we are the pillars of learning. We basically would serve as both educators and facilitators. We're very interested in learning all the stuff that we're doing. We want to make sure that we can offer the guidance and encourage that risk-taking learning alongside with participant. So, and also that our expertise in information and verification validation really ensure that integrity of citizen science protocols that they're trying to get people to follow. So librarians are very good at following rules. I don't know if you guys know that, but that's why they found us very valuable, because we make sure that you don't put the wrong solution in the wrong bucket. So we already have a lot of established local partnerships. We work very closely with schools, universities, a lot of community organizations. We are a very inclusive collaborative. We have a very inclusive collaborative learning environment. And we are a very trusted institutions. People, when they walk in through the library, they know they're not going to be judged. No matter what kind of books they checked out, what sort of program they attend, whatever they want to say, we're not going to judge them. So that makes us very trustworthy, and we're not there with an agenda, try to push anything. We're just being very objective. So I think with that, it really makes us, again, that ideal partner for a lot of organizations. And not to mention library, the physical environment itself is safe, welcoming, and very inclusive. All right, moving on. So I mentioned about these partnership earlier, so I just want to kind of show you, if you're interested, you can go to their website to learn a lot of stuff that they do. But you will see that on there is something that says globe data. So make a note of that, because we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And this is the Globe Observer. They have a separate site for this. Again, you will see there's get data. That's another thing I want to point it out, because that's one of some of the few challenges that we run into when we try to get our participants to learn how to pull data for their contribution. So I mentioned that Globe Observer has 4 protocols for people to do, and these are all 4. Actually, right now there's 5, because the 5th one is the eclipse. And that thing will taken out after the total eclipse happened on April 8th. But you can see there's globe clouds, there's globe mosquito habitat mapper, there's land cover, and there's globe trees. And we actually have we use all 4 of these apps in conjunction with our kits. So now, we're going to switch gear a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about LA BioBlitz Challenge, just so you all have an idea how, I guess, government, public libraries, getting involved in using data, and how this is pivoting into something that we can do for conservation efforts that the city is trying to do. So how many of you know what BioBlitz is? Have you heard of the term? Anyone? Nobody. Perfect. All right, now I'll explain it to you. So BioBlitz is actually an event where scientists and community members, they will come together, work together to find and identify as many species as possible in a specific area over a period of time. It could be from few hours, actually a few minutes, even up to like permanently runs for indefinitely. Usually for some of the events, it may be run like a few days up to maybe a month or so. Again, it can happen happen anywhere from urban to rural areas, big or small. So for LA Public Library, we started in the summer 2021. The LA Sanitation Environment, which is the LA City's Bureau of Sanitation Environment, we call it LA SAN. I'm so used to use the acronym, so I'm just going to use LA SAN throughout. We decided to join forces to launch this LA BioBlitz Challenge, where local residents are invited to participate in the collection and mapping of wildlife and plants using the popular citizen science app called iNaturalist. How many of you have ever heard of iNaturalist? Good. 1, 2, 3. 3? Anyone else? All right. If you have not, I highly encourage you all to please download that and play with it. It's really cool. I've been using it since 2018, and it's almost kind of like my travel journal. It's like everywhere I go, I look for bugs now. So I just record them and put it on there. And every so often, I'll pull it out, and I'll be able to share that with, and it'll help me to remember, like, when I was in Madagascar, what did I saw? When I was in Antarctica, what did I saw? It's all these really cool stuff that you can keep track of. Really cool. So going back to 2021, our inaugural LA BioBlitz Challenge, we ran it for 8 weeks, and it was a huge success, so we decided to turn it into basically our citywide annual events. And you might wonder, why would you want to do this BioBlitz if, there is Natural History Museum that's already been doing BioBlitz or City Nature Challenge, all these, what's the reason that LA wants to do a separate one? We have more specific goals. In general, most of the BioBlitz out there, their goal is to raise awareness of local biodiversity, or just in general, biodiversity. So people will start noticing what sort of wildlife plants that they have around them. But for the LA SAN, they have something specific they're looking for, and that's how we set these goals. So of course, the first one, again, is to raise awareness of urban biodiversity, but the key is we want to learn about and document and enumerate the city's existing native biodiversity, specifically what we call the indicator species. If you don't know indicator species, if you do see indicator species around your neighborhood, that usually means your neighborhood, your area has a very quality habitat for these species. And every different cities have different indicator species to signify the quality of the habitats. And we want to reduce biodiversity data cold spots. There has been a lot of a lot of areas in the city that has not have any observation ever done in terms of finding whether it's wildlife or plants. And they really want to be able to see the spread of wildlife and plants in the city. And we also want to amplify the advantage, health and quality of life people derive from LA's diverse ecosystems, which is measured by the city's biodiversity index. So the way we run it is we have it as a game. So it's just like what we would do with the summer reading programs. We do as a challenge, and to complete the challenge, the participants would have to make or share 10 observations using iNaturalist Citizen Science app. Of the 10 observations, 3 of them has to be the indicator species on this game cards. And of the 10 observations, the same 10 observations, 1 has to be made in what we call the observation or data cold spots. And I'm going to show you the heat map that we created. So these are the 38 indicator species in the city that LA Sanitation is trying to find them. So they're all native. You might have seen them, some of you might have seen it in the Pasadena area, but we were looking specifically, boundary-wise, geographically, we want to find them within the city of Los Angeles. So. And thanks to the GIS team in LA San, because in the library we do not have that expertise, we have this heat map created that our goal is really, we're telling people, helping us to turn the map green. So every green pixel you see here is different numbers of observations that has been made or submitted. And we also make sure it's interactive enough that there is a place for people to find their addresses and to see if they are near any of what we call the observation cold spots, so they can just kind of hop over across the street and try to see if they find any weeds or any interesting bugs, or like I would specifically look for spiders, for instance. And then they can submit it to iNaturalist. We also map out schools, our library branches, and local parks that are located within what we call the observation cold spot areas. And then that helps us when we do the outreach programs. We can make sure that those are the areas that we target specifically. And I don't know why I have that slide here, but I'm going to skip. Okay. Huh? Oh. Skip. All right. Just sharing some of the accomplishments. So these data is just the stuff that we share with the public. They're very easy to find on iNaturalist, so we use that. So you can see the first year, because it was 8 weeks, so we have a higher number. But honestly, if you look at the average observation we received, last year was actually what we consider the most successful one that we have done. We were able to map with people across the city. We were able to find, at most the 28 of 38 indicator species, and how many cold spot reductions we have done. So the first year was 16 and then 6.7, but last year we did 8.6. And we also share the information like in the year of 2021, what are the most observed indicator species? So they were the red-tailed hawks and great blue heron, for instance. And then last year it was the red-tailed hawk, monarch, and also, again, the great blue heron. And just quickly to show you, these are some of the photos that were submitted by people who participated in the BioBlitz. Yeah, there was a bobcat walking by somebody's pool. So how were the data used besides the one that we share with the public? So the photo or sound data that our participants shared to iNaturalist they were analyzed and studied by the scientists within LA San, the biodiversity research team, to really understand the presence and spread of the species for mapping, analysis, and research. identify critical conservation locations, and making informed restoration or other type of conservation decision. And our collaborative effort of this crowdsourced data significantly contributed to the completion of LA City's very first and most comprehensive biodiversity index baseline report. And the success of the BioBlitz Challenge itself also spurred the creation and publication of LA Sands Biodiversity Indicator Species, a guide to the City of Los Angeles charismatic umbrella species. So these are documents that you can find them on LA Sanitation's website. And I want to quickly show you here. So one of the story we had was we found a lot of, what was that called? The fountain grass. How many of you know what fountain grass are? Okay, you might have them actually outside your house. So one thing we did is when we did the BioBlitz Challenge, we realized a lot of people were photographing fountain grass around their neighborhood. And you might not know this, but fountain grass is really a great fuel for wildfire. So when they were able to map these out, one thing we did is, with iNaturalist's help, we can map out, we can figure out, what are the invasive species or introduced species, what are the native, what are the endangered ones. And so with all the contribution coming from people, LA Sanitation Environment were able to actually find out the areas that have the most invasive species, specifically the fountain grass. So they were able to have a special, a weeding project to go into those locations to weed out those fountain grass, so to reduce the wildfire from exacerbating if it actually happens. Now I want to go into the challenges that we have encountered, that we noticed when we were doing the BioBlitz or participating in the citizen science project. So one of which, the first one, the data quality and standardization, that is one of the biggest challenge to ensure the data collected by citizen scientists are reliable, accurate, and collected in a standardized way to make it more compatible with other data sets and useful for scientific research. And we also noticed there's lack of data diversity. I personally, since I'm compiling a lot of data, these attendance data for our programs, one thing we notice is majority of the participants tend to be white, highly educated, and wealthy. So for us, most of our the programs are most successful in areas like in the west side, like Westwood, more affluent communities for sure. And so pretty much what we call the western area of our system, almost every single branch is participating, and they get tons of data. But again, we notice most of them are white. So that sort of conflicts with what we were hoping to accomplish with Citizen Science Project. Next one is the privacy and ethical concerns. Open access to data can sometimes lead to privacy issues, and this is specifically an issue for us in some cases because we work with students at the LA Unified School District. And they specifically say, we do not want you to have to ask us to have students required to put in their emails, their names, or anything. So, if you ever participate in Citizen Science Project, there's a few things they required, usually an email address, because they kind of want you to make sure you continue doing the citizen science. And these are all important stuff, and so we have to figure a way out how not to include any of the private information in order to engage them, especially students, in these citizen science projects that we want them to participate. So that's another one. And another issue we have is sometimes we get conflict instructions. For example, for iNaturalist. In general, they told us we should keep our location finder, our GPS on our phones on, just because geospatial information is where you find those wildlife is very important to them. However, there will be time you actually need to turn it off. Is if you have found a rare species or something that has not existed for a long time, all of a sudden it popped in your neighborhood. But our question is, well, I would not know if it's a rare species or not if I don't have the geotag on, right? And it's just really interesting how some of these instructions comes a little bit confusing. So we are constantly debating where we should have it on or not. And also we have people, they would be interested saying, well, I don't want people to know where I live, so I'm going to move the toggle. And then so with that impact of the accuracy of data, that's another thing that we were concerning. Next is the complexity of data. The complexity of data, so it can be, when the data are collected, they can be complex, and if we don't have the proper expertise, it's kind of difficult for the general public to understand how to use the data effectively. Honestly, we're collecting these data, but a lot of them asking me, the question is, where did the data go? And where can I find them? And when we show them here, like with the Globe Observer here, you can pull them out. And they're like, oh, good, I see the map, I see all the dots. And so what does that mean? And so that tells us they require a continued training on learning how to retrieve these data. That's another issue we have. Technological barriers is another one. Everybody have the same technology at hand. Access to resources, also the way people interpret data is another issue. Language and culture barriers. A lot of citizen science projects actually created only in English. It's now being known to the citizen science community, so more and more citizen science projects are now, they're working with the volunteers to translating them into different languages, but initially they're all in English and a lot of people just couldn't participate. Data literacy is another one. When you're engaging the public to come in and participate, everyone comes in with different data literacy level. And for us who's trying to train them and people trying to train us, it also creates a barrier for all of us. What's another one here? And sustainability and the temporality of the platforms that's used to collect these data. What we've noticed is a lot of these citizen science projects, they are rely on fundings, and when the funding ceases to exist, the platform's gone. Then the people's like, where did all the data that we submitted go? And we're like, I don't know. And we just don't know where to pull them. So these are all the challenges that we've run into. And the citizen science community are aware of it. So here are some of the strategies to try to improve these challenges to mitigate. One thing I want to point out here is that about the data diversity, which is a huge issue right now. What we're trying to do is, as a library, what we can do is we can go out, instead of waiting for people coming to the library, we can go out to the community, meeting especially the marginalized population where they're at. So to get them more involved and try to explain to them why knowing air quality is important, how you can contribute to the air quality data, and how that would change the air quality in your community. Okay. So this is my last slide, yes. But as we draw the presentation to a close, I want to invite you all to join me in a collective mission. You've just witnessed the huge potential of citizen science and its transformative power. But the path to a truly open access to citizen science data is strewn with obstacles that calls for our immediate attention. And many of you do have that wealth of data expertise, and it's this knowledge that really we can help empower institutions like us, LA Public Library, to lead our community, especially those who are in underserved areas, to harness the full benefit of citizen science. So we're hoping that you will work with it to help clear the path for more enthusiastic participation in helping people navigate and utilize open data. And it's really not just about making data available. What we're trying to do here is it's really about making it accessible and understandable and actionable. So your skills, all of you, if you're a data expert, really could help us bridge that gap between the data availability and data literacy, unlocking the new opportunity, discovery, and innovation. So I hope there's some way we can collaborate to demystify open data and inspire a new wave of citizen scientists. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivienne. That was a great talk.
Thank you.
We have we have lots of time for questions. Do you want to take questions?
Okay.
Okay, all
I'll
right.
take
Well,
questions.
we'll open for questions. Maybe just raise your hand so I can try to keep it a little bit sane. Anybody? Okay. Here.
Sorry. Yes, for the recording, sure. Yeah, I was just wondering, how is the coverage overall in the greater LA area? Do you extend down to Orange County in terms of?
No, we don't. Right now, because our funding primarily comes from the city, so we do have to set the service area. We do have to set the boundaries within the city of Los Angeles as where the service areas are.
What would it take for there to be maybe some penetration past the orange curtain?
That's a good question. I would have to check with our administration, but we do open to partnerships. So, for example, actually, thank you for bringing that up. So I remember when we first started the pilot for the Citizen Science Project, we actually partnered with the Pasadena Public Library System. So it is possible. One thing we can do is we can make a case in terms of we can compare the data between Orange County and LA City. The only thing is because county, in Orange, because we're a city entity, we're not a county entity. So basically the county project is more handled by a Natural History Museum. So they have all the county data, and they will probably work great to compare that data with Orange County. But if there's any specific cities in Orange County that are interested to work with us, the partnership is definitely possible.
Next. Anybody?
Hello there.
Hi.
I'm sorry if I missed this in the beginning, but I wanted to ask, how is the data stored, and are there rules for what you have to make public, how long it has to be available? Do you have things in place for how you, for example, share data between the city and the county projects?
Okay, so for our Citizen Science Project data, we don't store any of them. The data goes to, we basically tap into the existing citizen science projects. So they are usually created by universities or some environmental groups, for instance, that they want to gather data. So they're the one who's keeping all the data. That's the reason why if the funding's gone, the platform's gone, the project's gone. That's one of the issues that we run into.
So even though it's funded by public money sometimes, or there's public money involved, does the data just have to be public?
No. For us, we want to make sure that the data that's being collected and shared are public. That is one of the key primary thing. One thing that we really stress on. We're not taking on any citizen science project that only limits certain people can access. For example, any research that says only it's collecting specifically for certain research group or certain researchers, we don't really take on those. Yeah. We want to make sure these data are actually accessible and they can be shared, they can be seen, viewed, used by everybody in a community. Especially for anyone who contributes, they should have the right to be able to access them. So.
Next.
So this isn't really a question. It's more of a, Vivienne, where can they find you tomorrow with these neighborhood science kits?
Oh, I will be at the next generation, playground in the other side of the convention center. We will be showcasing these kits. You're welcome to come and play with them. We will hook it up to a monitor so you guys can see what are the apps that we use. I know there is a huge interest in air quality research around, so you can come and see what kind of devices that we use for people to learn about air quality, and the app that goes specifically with that.
Anyone else?
All right.
I think that's it. Let's thank our speaker again, please.
Thank you.
And the next talk in this room will be from machine learning to machine reasoning. So be sure not to miss that.